Hi, everybody. Hi, this is Dr. Ken Muich, Fibromyalgia Wellness Center. I want to wish everybody happy holiday, happy Hanukkah to all of our friends and patients. And I want to thank you very, very much for tuning in. This is a very, very interesting subject again on fibromyalgia, but it pertains to the medical field itself. And so it may be fibromyalgia, but it may be some other condition or conditions, shall we say. I thought I'd just start out with, again, a little background history as far as fibromyalgia is concerned. If anybody has checked historically as far as my talks that I've given, historically, fibromyalgia goes back to biblical times. And most of the biblical information was about males, not females. And so most of the information that we have on fibromyalgia and how individuals would fall on the ground and sweat and in horrific pain and unable to sleep and so forth involved males, not females. Not until actually World War II were the two put together as far as male and female as far as fibromyalgia. The females were looked upon as something else. Even today, as a matter of fact, males and females, the research has shown it might be as high as 70% are female, 30% are male, as far as fibromyalgia are concerned. And yet that is not 100% true, as I've mentioned in other talks, where it has to do with the male ego, also doctors not being able to diagnose fibromyalgia correctly. And so instead of looking deeper into their condition, they usually tell them that there's nothing wrong with them or one thing or another in that respect, or maybe give them some general medication for different things without really looking into the fibromyalgia aspect, because again, fibromyalgia is one of those cynical things as far as the medical society is concerned. Maybe, maybe not, just don't have it. It doesn't fit into what we call the allopathic form of diagnosis. Allopaths are MDs, DOs, so forth and so on. And they look at it as far as if you have a certain condition, they'll do a diagnostic testing as far as objective is concerned. The x-rays and MRI, blood tests and all those. And for fibromyalgia patients, they come back negative except for secondary conditions. And then they say, oh, well, you've got osteoarthritis, or you have rheumatoid, or you have MS, you have one thing or another. And so they usually put it in that respect. But let's get into what I was going to... Oh, by the way, now there's more and more males coming back from the war that have PTSD, and that triggers fibromyalgia in a much greater amount, shall we say. And it really puts it into the forefront. And that makes it even more difficult for doctors to diagnose correctly. But I thought I'd talk to you about two males that came in relatively close in age. They were in their early 40s, late 30s, early 40s. Very, very similar symptoms. They were pre-diagnosed before me by doctors and put them in the classification of fibromyalgia, but all of them had other conditions, irritable bowel or stomach problems, osteoarthritis, so forth and so on, injuries, you name it, a little bit of everything, a lot of fatigue, the usual and customary as far as fibromyalgia is concerned. So what we did was we did our historic testing and evaluation, and we found out that yes, they did have fibromyalgia. We put them on our pre-protocol, and that was the detox. One of them went through exceptionally well, and no problems whatsoever. The other one dragged on a little bit just because of the stomach problems that they were having, readjusting to staying away, shall we say, from inflammatory foods, the sugars, gluten, trans fatty acids, dairy products. But he was able to get through it. And so both of them were pretty close on line. I think the second one was maybe a week or two off as far as the finishing completion of the pre-protocol, the detox itself. And so what we started them on was the guaifenesin. Guaifenesin in our protocol pulls out the excess phosphate and calcium. They urinate it out and they start feeling better. But in the meantime, when they do take the guaifenesin, they have a bad reaction. That is the evacuation of the phosphate and calcium out of the cells. They urinate it out, but not all of it can come out at the same time because it's in all of the cells. And so what happens is that which is resorbed back into the body causes a reaction. What's the reaction? Usually the most severe thing that they've been having recently. Could it be joint pain? It could be headaches. Could be stomach, so forth and so on. In this case, the one individual. We'll say patient number 1 doing quite well. We put him on 300 milligrams twice a day, and right away he started having these up and down symptoms. And so we said, good, just stay at that, and we'll see what happens as far as the condition is concerned. In other words, when they first take it, they'll have some bad reaction, but after about 24, 48 hours, it seems to melt away, and then they start feeling a little bit better, and then boom, then they take it again, and then they have another reaction, so forth and so on. And so, but each time it's a little bit less, and the good times are longer, the bad times are shorter. And this is exactly what happened with the first patient. So now we're into about 45 days with patient number 1, and he's doing exceptionally well. And he's still at 300 milligrams twice a day with guaifenesin, and he's doing just fine. The second patient, however, we put him on the guaifenesin 300 milligrams twice a day. Right away, he had bad reaction, and it stayed with him. And so what we said, okay, so let's do this. Let's drop it down to 300 milligrams once a day and see how that works. And so he started going through that, and he had some good days, bad days, and I told him that that's okay. That's what's supposed to happen. But again, it persisted. So I said, okay, let's try this. We'll do 300 milligrams every other day and see what happens. So that was a lot better. It's going to take a lot longer. As long as he stays off the salicylates, the problems that he might have, hopefully will slowly leach him back into the regular program. After a couple of weeks, I said, okay, let's try it again. Let's try 300 milligrams twice a day and see what happens. His reaction was, again, exceptional, and it stayed with him. I think it has to do with the problem that he's having secondary irritable bowel, and it is a secondary condition. It's not the same condition. So I said, okay, let's do this. Let's see what happens if we back off again, and we'll do it every other day. Like 300 milligrams one day, and then wait a couple days, and then take it again, and so forth and so on. And that seemed to, again, work. So again, we tried to go back down to once a day, 300 milligrams once a day, and that was bad, but not too bad. When we tried to go 300 twice a day, again, bad reactions. So what does that mean? Are we failing? No. What I'm trying to point out is that just like any patient that comes in our clinic, no two are alike. They talk about fingerprints not being the same and snowflakes and so forth. Same thing true with individuals. Look, if you got a problem, we try to look at the individual and their condition and secondary conditions and how this is adversely affecting them. Versus a cookie cutter approach, the one that, okay, you're going to be on this if you like it or not, so forth and so on. That's not the way it goes. Every body is different, and secondary conditions oftentimes will cause us to have second thoughts as far as our direction is concerned, so that we change it for the benefit of the patient, so that the patient comes first and not just our program itself. And so that's the most important thing. Now, how does that fit in? That's the same thing with patients. A patient comes in, doesn't have to be fibromyalgia, it can be something else. And you have to be open-minded enough to know and see differences as far as the individual is concerned. See differences as far as, are there secondary things that might be causing additional problems for the individual? Are there problems for patients that we need to look closer into, take additional tests and so forth, evaluations? And so I think that's extremely important. We don't take anything for granted. The ones that go right straight through, just like the first patient I mentioned, the male, great. We're very, very happy. We can't be happier. That's wonderful. And even his secondary conditions, which he has, have not disappeared, but they've been metered down to the point where they're not bothering him as much. Because, again, fibromyalgia makes all the other conditions worse. Remember, I've mentioned that over and over again. So what I'm trying to point out is that again, we treat patients on an individual basis. Even if they come in with fibromyalgia, we have a program, a protocol, pre-protocol, all this for them. But again, we want to make sure that they get through this properly. If that means it takes a little bit longer, great. I always tell patients, look, this is not a 100-yard dash. This is a marathon. You've had this for how long? But we're going to help you through as quickly as we can. And you can have periods where you're going to feel better, and you're going to enjoy life the way you should. But in the meantime, you have a little patience. Again, just because this other patient went through without any problems doesn't mean you're going to do the same thing. We're always looking to see and evaluate if there'll be secondary problems that show up, regardless of whether it be fibromyalgia, osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, irritable bowel, skin conditions, you name it. You don't have to have fibromyalgia to have a doctor to be open-minded to look at all the other conditions that might be adversely affecting you. And that's the key behind this, okay? And so we're still working with the both patients, first and second, to see how we can help them get through this in the quickest fashion, but also the safest, and that which works the best for the individual. So anyway, I want to wish everybody again happy holidays, happy Hanukkah. Thank you very, very much for listening in. This is number 44 on our weekly list at 12:30 p.m. Every Monday. I do a live Facebook video presentation from Fibromyalgia Wellness Center. Thank you very much for whoever's sending the information in. We're having a lot of people that listen in. Do not participate, but that's okay. If I can give you information, that's the most important thing. And if you have questions on either our program or some other program or conditions, so forth, please feel free to let me know. You're not out there by yourself. That's what we're trying to do, is prove to you that there is a condition called fibromyalgia, and it does affect millions of people. And I'm so sorry to say that not all of these people are understood. They're misunderstood by the Medical Association today because it just doesn't fit into what everybody else has. And so I always say, when a doctor says, you're going to have to live with it, I just, I say, he doesn't have enough time for you, okay? That's the most important thing. He doesn't have enough time to look at all of the situations, conditions, and so forth, and symptoms that you have. There's answers for everything. I really love when patients come in. I love-hate, so to speak, when they say, well, it looks like I'm stuck with it. I can't do it. I don't care what it is. You can always improve everything if the doctor is willing to take the time to listen to you and take care of everything. I'm wearing my winter garb, so to speak, in Arizona. It's about 60 degrees. This is our winter out here. So whereas some of you are probably snowed in. Hi, Kia, and thank you very, very much. Kia Queen, that's cute. Anyway, I wonder if that is Shelley. But anyway, I want to thank everybody. And 'tis the season, so go out there and enjoy yourself. Have a good time. Watch all those bad things that you can eat that are inflammatory, and enjoy yourself anyway. Take care. This is Dr. Ken Muich, Fibromyalgia Wellness Center. We'll see you next week. And oh, by the way, speaking of that, we're going to be next subject is because I've had a couple of doctors introduce this and talk to me about it. I've heard of it before, but it's called functional medicine. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit and how that might be a positive, negative, so forth for not only fibromyalgia but other conditions itself. Hey, have a great week. And tell all your family, friends, and your doctors about this. Love to have them come and join. What the heck? I don't mind. I'm just telling you the way it is, the way we see it in the clinic and research-wise. So everybody have a wonderful week. Thank you so very, very much.